Good afternoon, good evening, wherever your time zone happens to land. Welcome to Motivational Monday. It's Mouthy Deb, the vibration training lady, and I'm here to talk to you not just about vibration plates today, but a very common symptom. I want to get into what that symptom is, how you can manage it, and get into some of the myths around the therapies out there and some of the marketing myths and marketing often get in the way of making an informed decision. So if you're joining me today, thank you for joining me. If you're dealing with neuropathy, or if you're managing your neuropathy with Life Pro products now, or you're curious about that, please, today is a great day for questions. I want to start with what is neuropathy. And first of all, it is not something that just happens to those with diabetes. It is a very common symptom if you're dealing with diabetes, but like many symptoms, it's going to vary for everyone based on the severity of your condition, your current health. But neuropathy, I went to Google today because I think it's fun to do that. Then if you're looking at the same thing, you can vet that my information is true, but you're going to come across the same information if you're looking to the internet as your research guide. So Google defines neuropathy as damage or dysfunction to one or more nerves that typically results in numbness, tingling, muscle weakness, or pain in any affected area. It frequently starts in the hands and feet, really commonly in the feet, but other body parts can be affected as well. What causes neuropathy? There are many causes to neuropathy. Diabetes being the number one cause as far as the United States. And I think it was estimated that 20 to 25% of the population is affected to some degree with neuropathy. So here's, interestingly enough, some of the other causes. Certainly trauma, if you're in an accident, medical trauma, sometimes a condition can cause trauma to your system. So trauma can cause neuropathy for sure. Chemotherapy. So if you've had treatment for chemotherapy, that's not a uncommon side effect after you've gone through the treatment. Alcoholism and autoimmune diseases are also very common reasons, or people that are dealing with those disorders and conditions develop neuropathy. Now, neuropathy, most of us think of it as a lack of sensation, but for some it can very much be a heightened sensation, or very sensitive to touch, or uncomfortable. So I wanted to talk about a few different Life Pro options today, because a vibration plate is an ideal tool for many, many things. But if you're dealing with neuropathy and it's painful to the point where like you're sensitive to touch, there may be other therapies I recommend, to really depending on who you are, what your own personal tolerance is, and of course combining and progressing within these therapies to continually improve the symptoms you might be dealing with are critical. So there's going to be a few things I'm going to talk about today. Again, if you're joining me and it's about neuropathy in your day, or maybe you're helping someone manage the symptoms of neuropathy, please join the conversation. Let me know where you're from, how you're managing your neuropathy. Maybe you've got a new diagnosis, things like that. I'm going to leave some time for questions at the end if any of you have some for me. So how do we improve the symptoms of neuropathy? One of the big things you'll see when you're looking across the internet, or the therapies that are out there, is they boast that you want to improve circulation, get blood flowing. A couple of different reasons. You want to keep your blood pressure under control. That's a very common thing for sure with our diabetics, but high blood pressure is one of those things that can contribute to neuropathy symptoms. You want to be active. When you move, your lymph and your blood moves. So again, anything that you can do to get your circulation moving is going to help manage symptoms, whether they're pain, lack of sensitivity. And many of you that are dealing with neuropathy are also dealing with other things. Maybe you're dealing with autoimmune disorders. Maybe you're dealing with fibromyalgia. Maybe you've got cancer. So it's very rare that I can't even think of a time where somebody just had neuropathy. Like it came from somewhere, or as a result of having it, other conditions or symptoms have developed. So being active, and what does that look like? It depends on you, where you're physically starting, what your tolerances are, how strong you are, fatigue levels. So don't look at it as what type of exercise should I be doing. There are certainly things you could be doing, but think about getting moving. If you're sedentary now, you're inactive, you're not going for even little walks regularly, whatever you can do to get the blood flow moving. I'm going to say that a few times today. Okay, so what does the Mayo Clinic say? If you look on the internet and you search for treatments for neuropathy, treatments are going to come up in the form of pills and pharmaceuticals. I hate to say that. But if you look at something like, is exercise or is activity good for neuropathy? Mayo Clinic, regular exercise such as walking 3 times a week can reduce neuropathy pain, improve muscle strength, and help control blood sugar levels. Gentle routines such as yoga, tai chi might also be helpful. What is a vibration machine? It's just an easy way to exercise and do the yoga and do the tai chi. If you've watched any of my sessions in the past, a vibration plate is an environment that makes whatever activity, exercise you want to do on it easier, less fatiguing, and more beneficial in less time. Are there any risks to a vibration machine? If you start searching on the internet, what are the risks of vibration therapy? The internet kind of gobbledygooks and you start running into other terminology. I've talked about this in other sessions, but from this trainer's experience, what is the risk to using a proper vibration plate? There are none. The worst you're going to do is over exercise yourself and you might be pooped out a little the next day. But it's important to know what a proper device is and what exercises you personally should be doing on it for your situation. Perhaps you are dealing with other things. Perhaps you suffer from fatigue. Perhaps you're dealing with cardiac or respiratory issues and you doubt yourself. So there's ways to start being active responsibly and conservatively, and a vibration plate just makes that easier. Some things that will come up and have come up commonly is people sometimes with neuropathy, or they develop sensation issues through the use of vibrational tools or workplace equipment. So rewind here, you want to use vibration to fix something that potentially caused it. I hear this question commonly from a lot of people, so I'm going to put myself out there on the dartboard today and be the target. There is a huge world of what is called ISO, or occupational guidelines, and they're guidelines you'll see posted in the common lunchroom, in your workplace safety manuals. But ISO guidelines regulate things like, working with industrial vibration equipment that produces vibrations. So dampers and jackhammers, maybe you're driving a big truck all day long. And sometimes that gets mixed up or used as a marketing deterrent against vibrational therapy tools, vibration plates, rollers, foot massagers. There's all kinds of things out there that vibrate and claim to improve neuropathy. But if you've suffered a sensitivity issue or developed neuropathy on the workplace, it's kind of hard to connect how one can help the other. And I just wanted to briefly explain the differences between the two. Occupational vibrational exposure typically is very high frequency. So frequency is one part of the equation. So frequency on like a tamper or a jackhammer is something like 100 to 300 hertz. On your average vibration plate, none of them should exceed about 50, 60 hertz, depending on the type of technology that you're dealing with. But there's only 2 types of technologies I tend to support in using, and they're very validated. But yeah, top frequency, 50, 60 hertz on a vibration plate in comparison to 1, 2, 300. The other risk of vibrational occupational exposure is durations. So excessive frequency or excessive durations, meaning you're that truck driver, and maybe the frequency range isn't as high, but you're sitting on that tailbone for 8 to 12 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, 40, it's excessive time or frequency that accumulates to sometimes sensitivity issues. So that's a completely different topic. If you're looking online or you're talking to someone about your vibration plate and they bring up ISO guidelines and say, oh, vibration can be very bad, they do not know what they're talking about, or they do, and they're using it to play on the fact that you may not understand that there is a very, very big difference. Sometimes when we talk about how long can I use my vibration plate during, some of the discussions that occur, that there's a reason that we typically recommend, 30 minutes to an hour. We have not established vibration guidelines as far as exposure. There's too many frequencies, there's too many variations, too many types of plates out there to validate everything. I have brought some science into the equation. I'll have my buddy Lauren here share in a bit. But on the occupational stuff, there's tons and tons of studies in the workplace environment that have been done, and there are potentially detrimental effects. But I do assure you, it's a completely different thing than bearing a weight or doing exercise on a vibration plate. So know that that's more related to lots of high frequency and long duration of exposure. So how can a vibration machine or some of the other tools that I've got here that I want to talk about today improve your symptoms? So as I said, there are no risks to using a vibration plate. But it is important to understand what type of device that you're using. And I just ask that you use common sense in applying how you start conservatively. Starting conservatively is what I recommend, but what that looks like is going to vary. If you can't stand on the floor for 5 minutes, I don't recommend those 5 minutes be on a vibration plate for the first time. They accelerate the effects of what you're doing on the floor. So conservative means less time, more often, not starting at a slow speed or a slow setting. Reduce your time. You can always do a little more later, but it's really common if you're dealing with neuropathy that you do have associated symptoms. And one of the big symptoms is fatigue. So I'd like you to learn how to use these devices to boost the energy and reduce sensitivities versus draining yourself and taking away energy that you do have. So vibration plates for exercise or therapy is what we're going to start with. I also want to highlight red light as a very good alternative. If you're starting out, with major sensitivity, and I'm going to use my feet as an example. It's probably the most common area that people are affected with neuropathy, or it's one of the most, especially if you're diabetic, it's one of the most common areas that you notice a little bit of a pins and needles, or your feet start getting cold more consistently, or they're white, the coloration isn't there. Again, there's a degress in your circulation. We need to improve that circulation. So if you are dealing with neuropathy in your feet, one of the big things I want to make sure is you're not standing when you start using a vibration plate. Why is that important? Typically, when you're dealing with neuropathy, you're dealing with sensation issues. You're usually lacking balance. You may be lacking coordination. Your feet may feel heavier. And if you have, a little bit of stumble action during the day, or you tend to be bumping into walls, I want you not to start in an environment that's going to challenge your stability. So a vibration machine does a phenomenal job short term, even within one session, of improving your balance and flexibility. But I want you to become assimilated, become comfortable with how this feels, and kind of think of it like renovating a house. We're going to start with the foundation. Let's get some blood flow in those feet and those legs before we progress to something more challenging, okay? There's a bazillion videos that we have provided between myself, Amber, and Roseanne once you're able to stand on a plate. But if you're reluctant to stand on the floor for long durations, or you do suffer with stability, I want you seated for the first week or two and start seeing and experiencing some improvement in the sensation. You will feel more confident and more stable on the plate, progressing that way in my experience, than putting yourself on here, giving yourself a spook, and being afraid to try it again. So guess what's happening while I'm sitting here doing nothing? My circulation is improving. My feet are moving back and forth without me having to put one stitch of effort forth. If you're finding this is intense, and I always start with a mid to higher speed range, it's smoother, it's less choppy, but I don't want your feet really wide. I want your feet closer together if you are dealing, especially if you're dealing with pain, if you're dealing with lack of sensation, or your feet are cold, you tend to be able to tolerate the shake a little better. But if you're dealing with pain, swelling, tenderness to touch, reduce the distance between your feet and until you feel a little bit more comfortable. Why is the vibration plate also different than a jackhammer or a truck or some of this workplace stuff I talked about? Is it's typically very short in duration. So if you're starting with a vibration plate specifically to treat the symptom of neuropathy, we're not looking at other goals. We will get to those once the neuropathy improves. I would love to see you using it about 4 or 5 times a day, but for 2 to 3 minutes. Just start spot treating, getting some circulation going as you need it throughout the day. The side bonus is going to be you're going to boost energy. Those little sessions are going to make you feel more stable so that you can have a better quality of your day. They also, as I mentioned earlier, they operate at much lower frequencies than industrial equipment. And a vibration machine is something that you can start with to get the stimulation going, but you can also progress to weight-bearing exercises. So it can kind of be your therapeutic feel-good to address symptoms, but if you're reluctant to do exercises now, don't go to the gym. It's not your thing. Walking isn't your thing. Maybe you're dealing with bad hips or knees. These are ultra low impact, so it's also a very ideal way to exercise. The added bonus, if you're doing exercises on a vibration plate, you're just ramping up the circulation more so than if you had done those same exercises on the floor. And at that point, I'm going to give myself an opportunity to introduce a study I looked up. There's tons of studies out there, and for every good study outlining how vibration therapy helps neuropathy, there's going to be another study telling you how it's no good, or there isn't enough study, or research is in its infancy. So unfortunately, it's a very huge topic that lacks a lot of definition and a lot of guidelines between the types of devices. So I found a couple of examples today, just as an example. And instead of just sitting here and putting our feet, let's do some other things. I don't want you standing yet, but what are other things we could do? Perhaps some leg lifts. 1, 2. Maybe we want to point the toes. Okay. I'm going to keep doing this while I keep talking. So, let me see where my study was. Hang on here. Oh, okay. So then I'm going to have Lauren drop this if she hasn't already. One of the studies I looked up was titled The Effects of Whole Body Vibration Therapy on Perception Thresholds of Type 2 Diabetic Patients with Peripheral Neuropathy, a randomized control trial. Okay. So what did they do? And I whenever I quote studies, I always find things that your machine is capable of. There's nothing more frustrating than finding a topic, looking into the research, and it's 4 different vibration machines. So there's that many out there. You want to make sure when you're looking at research, whole body vibration is great for a lot of things, but not all machines are the same. So subject stood on the platform with his or her barefoot shoulder width apart and stared to the front. Subjects bent their knees a little, 30 degrees, so that the vibration did not reach the head. And to prevent falls, the subject held a railing. Anyone who felt fatigue or dizziness could take a rest. So what did they do? The training performed was a frequency of 12 hertz, which is in your higher range on your oscillating mode. Most of Life Pro's machines are capable of 14, 15 hertz. So those high ranges, it's never an exact number. And the amplitude was 1 to 3 mil. The reason I pulled this study out is I want you to start thinking intensity is 2 factors. It's the speed of your machine, how many times it's shaking you. But the more important and less talked about measurement is the amplitude, which is how close or how far apart your feet are. When your feet are wide on your vibration plate, I'm on the 4D plus right now, and I'm moving, I think, 7 or 8 millimeters. In this study, they're using 1 to 3 millimeters. That's like dead center with your feet, and they're seeing improvements. And the position, I'm going to cut my head off, but the knees were just slightly bent. So they did this for 3 minutes, 3 times, and they had a 1 minute rest in between 3 times a week. So see how passively little. Imagine if you were just seated and you did this 3-4 times a day. You're going to see improvement almost immediately. What I will caution is because you're feeling an improvement in sensation, and that's not uncommon in the first use of a machine, please don't overdo it. It's very easy to overdo it, but keep your sessions under 5 minutes if you're dealing with severe neuropathy, and try using your platform a couple times throughout the day getting started versus one big long session that could potentially drain you, increase swelling. Everybody adapts to this environment differently, and we don't know what else is going on with your makeup. So start conservatively, not slow. There's a different terminology there. So further on this one, the conclusion research, and I've had Lauren has dropped the link to this. It says this case study provides the first evidence. No, these have been studied since the 70s, but the first evidence that whole body vibration can be effective and a relatively inexpensive therapeutic modality compared to prescription drugs to treat patients with painful diabetic neuropathy. That sounds pretty positive to me. No side effects, no invasive surgeries, no potential other side effects due to pharmaceuticals. I looked something else up here and I found a short article, and it was a really poor example. It had 3 different studies referencing 3 different machines, but after I read pages and pages of good stuff, kind of at the end, it basically diverted me back to, but here's a drug we can sell you. You know, everybody's looking for the miracle pill, and you may very well get short-term relief from those symptoms, but your body's going to get used to things. You're going to need to increase the dose, or you're going to need to try something else, when just getting active may very well give you so much more benefit in the long run. It's certainly not going to digress you further, even if you are taking pharmaceuticals. Getting active and getting your blood moving, progressing to standing exercises, bearing your weight is going to keep the bones, the tendons, the ligaments strong. It's about quality of life. So let's start improving that. Okay, so other things I want to just talk about briefly was other benefits to whole body vibration. So the big one I've talked about on several occasions is the increase of blood, getting that blood moving. It's one of the best things you can do for your neuropathy symptoms is just get blood moving. This does it very easily for you. If, however, you are below baseline and this was unbearably painful for you, or is something that you just couldn't tolerate, I do want to switch gears to what could very well be very good ongoing maintenance pieces, but are very commonly for me, a lot of my clients, are starting points before we progress to more weight-bearing exercises. And I want to bring this up. It's important because many of you are dealing with severe symptoms. Please do not give up hope. There's a lot of things you can do that are relatively inexpensive to improve yourself and your self-care at home. So the simplest, softest, most invasive way to improve neuropathy is a little thing called red light. Why am I showing you this? There's 2 things I would recommend if you're looking at LifePro's red light products for neuropathy. The BioHeal panel. Why I love this panel is this can be placed anywhere. You can put it down by your feet on the couch. You can put it beside you. Maybe it's upper body. But this is like hands-free. So your feet aren't touching it. There's no physical contact. It's just red light penetrating whatever area you need treatment for. So it's very passive, very hands-off. If you have the Aleva Red Belt, this is another very good way. I know many of you would think it's for the waist or the shoulder, but wrap this around your feet. This is if you've already got this tool, this is another red light tool. Very easy way to just start treating locally wherever those neuropathy symptoms are presenting. If you're looking to purchase, this for me is more universal. There's more applications. But if you do have red light therapy, whether it's the AccuCure, this or the BioHeal red light, gets blood flowing. Remember I talked earlier about improving circulation being one of the ways to improve this? This is a very hands-off, very uninvasive way to get blood flow going while managing pain, reducing swelling, helping detoxify, all kinds of different things. So that would be a very passive way. And you could, if you have a vibration plate, you could still do some exercise. But if you are dealing with severe neuropathy, sometimes something like red light prior to doing your physical therapy time or your vibration plate or even going for your walk will reduce sensitivity, improve your stability and your balance, reduce the risk of falls. Do you sort of see where I'm going with this? So pre-activity, there's a lot of things that you can do. The other thing, and I just got this one the other day, I'm saving this for last. Probably my most favorite, because it's vibration and it's lazy, is This particular foot massager, this is the VibraCare. Now, I just got this, and I'll explain why I just got this. I had one of these before, and about a month ago, what I love about the the foot massagers that Life Pro offers is it's another way without having to bear weight to get vibration, heat, compression. Really, there's a lot of really good choices. So foot massagers are absolutely something, especially if you're dealing with foot neuropathy, which is one of the most common types. That I recommend as a starting point or an ongoing care tool. So the VibraCare is there's two ways that you can position it. You can do your feet, you can do your calves, but I deal with many that have progressive neuropathy, especially in the feet. And about a month ago, my uncle was over for my daughter's birthday party, and everybody's hanging out in the yard. And he would never go near a vibration plate or anything exercise related. That's just he works hard as a mechanic, and he doesn't need to do any of those things. So I don't push. Um, but his neuropathy, he's dealing with diabetes later in life, and neuropathy is becoming very present, not just in the feet, but it's starting to travel up to the ankles. So if you notice progression, you need to start doing something, because it's not going to degress. It's just going to, if you're not doing anything different, don't expect your situation to change. So he kind of pulled me to the side and he said, you think one of those machines, might help if I put my feet on it? And he doesn't live in the same town as I do, and I didn't really want to send him home with a vibration machine and stand on it, and me not be there to help him. So I sent him home with my VibraCare and said, here, look it, you can do this. Just put your feet on it. You can do it on the couch. He likes to sit in his greenhouse and watch his tomatoes grow. So I said, it's not too heavy. You could put it up on the table and put your hands on it, but his feet are really bad. So he took it home, and I didn't hear from him for a few days, and then I got a voicemail. I got this voicemail, and it was, "Hi, Debbie, it's Uncle Don, and I just wanted to know, how often I should be using this thing. Please give me a call back." And usually when people ask me those type of questions, they're not calling for permission. They're calling for forgiveness. So I said, okay, and if there was something really, really wrong, he would have phoned me before then. So I didn't want to push. And yeah, I said to him, so, well, how are you feeling? And he said, well, awesome. Like the sensation improvement was remarkable. And he gets excited about nothing, but he was raving. And he said, but how often am I able to be using it? And I said, well, it really kind of depends on you. Like, how long have you been using it? Oh, about, 3, 4 times a day for a half an hour to an hour. You know what? At almost 80, if it's making him feel better and he's not feeling anything other than uplifted and less pain, it's hard for me to put parameters on things that make you feel good. I don't think there'll ever be a cookie cutter limit of how much you can expose yourself to vibration. And a foot massager is different than doing exercise on a vibration plate where you're bearing load. So, I think if you are overdoing any of these modalities, you may notice a digression in your symptoms, or maybe you're not noticing an improvement. And sometimes if you're using, whether it's a vibration therapy or a red light therapy for your neuropathy, if you notice things are kind of plateauing, sometimes it's like exercise. Your body gets used to things and you need to mix it up. So if you've been using them consistently and you've seen improvement, but you're kind of, bridging, flattening out, take a break, take a day or two off, and start back at a different setting, a different intensity, be it higher or lower. Just do something different to kind of reset and trick your system into going, wait a minute. It gets used to anything after a period of time. So mix things up, and add other therapies together to get better benefit, more optimal outcome. So again, depending on the level of severity of your symptoms and your overall physical being, it's really going to determine where you start. But there's absolutely so many things in your control and your power that are non-invasive, that you don't need to get a prescription for, that can improve your situation. The key is getting them and using them regularly. So I've seen all kinds of miracles with neuropathy over the years, with my vibration plates. And whether it's a roller, whether it's a foot massager or a vibration plate, vibration has been shown to improve the symptoms of neuropathy. Where you start and your tolerance is what's going to vary. So be conservative. When you start, less is more, less time and do more sessions as you feel you need it to boost the energy and the circulation versus doing a big long one and perhaps draining yourself. So following recommended guidelines as comes in your book is fine, but keep in mind, usually that's addressing a baseline of health. If you're dealing with a medical condition or you're very, very sedentary dealing with those types of issues, 10 minutes cookie cutter out of the box isn't always the best place for you to be starting. And experiment, listen to your body and what it's telling you. I do not know if I have any questions here today, so I'm going to start and see if I do. Hello, Debbie Olson. I think I'm saying that right. I have this, love it. Not the neuropathy, I hope. I hope you're talking about the vibration plate or some of the tools that I outlined today, and I'm going to make sure that they're back in camera so you guys can see what I was talking about today. Right? There's never one perfect tool for every person, lifestyle, or moment in time. But if you understand some of the basic benefits of what you're trying to accomplish with some of these conditions, it's a little bit easier to navigate, what might bridge the gap. If you're going camping for the weekend and you've been having some really good luck with your vibration machine, but you can't plug it into the tent, well, maybe charge up your Leva belt or your Leva Red or your LumaCure. There's lots of portable options as well. You don't need to suffer throughout the course of the day. If you're not home, many of these therapies are available to you at the office, under your desk. Find a way to be consistent with these treatments and you will see a consistent improvement. I wish I could guarantee and give you a stamp, but I've just in 15 years seen so much improvement, not only with diabetic neuropathy, but I have a lot of people that go through very, very severe medical procedures and see tremendous benefits. Again, the consistency is using it regularly with any of these devices. So Debbie hasn't, she loves it. Thank you, Lauren. So I've had Lauren post up a couple of references here. One to red light. It was more of a review of several red light studies, but definitely spoke to the benefits, especially of the infrared at that 850 nanohms. So she's provided the link if you want to take a little bit of a closer look. I also had her drop the ISO guidelines. Very, very official, very in-depth site. But for any of you that are of engineering mind and want to dig into that a little bit further, there's the information there. But know that, again, occupational and ISO guidelines have absolutely nothing to do with vibration machines and your exposure to them. She's also posted up the one that I talked about, the peripheral neuropathy and the improvement and the suggestion of this being an awesome non-invasive device. So many, again, are dealing with this condition. If it's yourself or you've ever had a setback and you've experienced the symptoms of neuropathy, get on it, get preventative. Don't let this condition progress. That hill just becomes harder and harder to climb. Sandra Parker, hi, I use the machine at least 3 times a day, 15 minutes each. I play reggae music and dance. I feel good. Been doing it for 2 months. That's great. And that speaks to, sometimes it's not always a big main workout. Sometimes it just makes you feel good. So good for you. And music, especially, if you're into that, there is no limit to what you could do on a vibration plate. You are only limited by your imagination and your range of motion, and the latter will improve with consistent use. Thank you for mentioning that, Sandra. If there's no other questions, I will let you get back to your Monday. I hope to see you next week. Next week, we are going to be talking about, I just submitted my questions this morning, but I will be back here Monday and every Monday at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific with Motivational Monday. We've got a few segments lined up in August, and there's a few challenges going on. The 21-day challenge on Life Pro's page as well. Let's keep you engaged over the summer so we don't have to break into all these habits and come fall when the weather, stay involved with your devices now, manage those symptoms and keep them away. Don't give up on your tools just because things have gone away and your symptoms have improved. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday, same time, same place. Don't work too hard. Have a fantastic week.